Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Full Press Radio Live. I'm Ian Glendon, and this is Thursday, which means it's Thursday night football. We got a whole lot of stuff to get to before we get ready to wrap up this week 14, week 15. For me, I'm out of the fantasy playoffs, so everything after week 14 just doesn't matter right now in the regular season. But alas, it is week 15. A lot of you out there getting ready for your fantasy football playoffs. I am not. However, real football, we're getting ready for the real playoffs, and we're going to have a matchup tonight that has a whole lot of playoff implications with it, with 49ers heading off to take on the Seahawks. Obviously, the Seahawks have stumbled a little bit since their kind of hot start early on, so we're going to see if they're going to be able to stave off the 49ers. However, John, that's not where we're going to start. We're going to start in the hockey world.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to start with Mr. Alex Ovechkin, who just the other night scored. And the only way Alex Ovechkin could do it, he capped off his 800th career goal. It was a hat trick goal, which, again, in dramatic fashion, Alexander Ovechkin became the third player in NHL history to reach the 800 goal plateau. Obviously, Gordie Howe and, of course, Wayne Gretzky are the other two. It's incredible, John, because this is a guy who this isn't a record that is just we see records all the time. It's just a matter of time before they're broken, and that's just kind of the nature of a lot of records. And he hasn't set the record yet. He still has ways to go, but to even reach 800 goals is an incredible accomplishment. And Wayne Gretzky at 897 is not that far off if he were to play a few more years.
Yeah, Ovechkin obviously continues to play this year. I would think with 2 more years, and he's generally in the 45, 50 goal range still at his advanced age. I mean, I think he's as great a natural goal scorer as we've ever seen in the sport. He'll get to Gretzky and surpass Gretzky in probably 2.5 years. And, I'm going to ask you this because you're more of the hockey guy. You're the goaltender, right? I think what he's doing now is pretty impressive. When Gretzky did it, it was impressive. When Gordie Howe did it, it was impressive, absolutely. But I think just the fact that I think goaltenders are better today, maybe not at the top end. I mean, there's nobody as good as Martin Brodeur or Patrick Roy or Dominik Hasek playing today. There's a lot of really excellent goaltenders. But I think there are more really good goaltenders than there were, say, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And also the equipment is so much better, right? I mean, when Gordie Howe was scoring his goals, a lot of the goaltenders didn't even wear masks.
Yeah.
And also they wore pads that they wore the entire season. So by midseason, those pads were like 20 pounds heavier with perspiration. So, and again, I'm not making light of old-time hockey. I get it. But what Ovechkin's done throughout his career to me is darn impressive. And I know he's not everyone's favorite, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Canada is just aghast at this because probably the 3 most popular Canadians in terms of athletics are who? Gretzky, Orr, and Gordie Howe, right?
Yeah.
Those are the guys. And along comes this guy from Russia who's, not Canadian, obviously, is now kind of crashed the party a little bit. But I've always liked him because he's exciting. And that's what any sport needs, is somebody who is polarizing and exciting. And certainly Alexander Ovechkin is that guy.
Well, and look, I think there's been an evolution of goaltending and goal scoring in this league. You go back to, like you said, Gordie Howe. Those pads, you had like horsehair filling them, so that any moment they got wet, they were just horribly heavy. And trust me, I know, because one of the earliest pairs of pads I had in the 90s were just that, and it was very trust me, it built up a lot of leg strength. Let's put it that way. But I mean, it's just a different game. I mean, you go back to sticks not being curved to now, where stick technology is. So are players better? Are goalies better? I don't want to say that definitively, because I happen to, and again, maybe this is a bit of, this is the era as a child I grew up watching, but and look, I mean, part of it was the style of the game that was being played at the time. But the era of guys like Patrick Roy, Marty Brodeur, Dominik Hasek, even the second tier guys, the Eddie Belfours, the Curtis Josephs, those guys, that era in the 90s into the early 2000s, I think is unmatched. But To your point, I mean, you have the athleticism, I think, is more evenly distributed. Whereas, a guy like I'm trying to make sense of it because I do agree that these athletes, just by virtue of, and this is true in just about every sport, just through the health advancements and the ability to train and what we know now versus what it was 20-30 years ago. Yeah, I think these players are going to be quote unquote better. But no matter how you slice it, being able to surpass the 800 goal mark is just, I mean, it's incredible to think. And to think that that record has stood much longer. And to Joel's point, yeah, it was a more physical game. It's still very physical now, but you're seeing a lot more open ice play as opposed to, you go across the middle of the ice, you're playing the New Jersey Devils. Well, you'll be lucky if you remember where you are when you wake up, because Scott Stevens is waiting, ready and willing to take your head off. And I'm not trying to make it sound like I miss the good old days. I'm glad things have changed, but that was just the nature of the game. So, I think back to 2003, Scott Stevens basically taking Paul Correa's head off. Now, today, that's a dirty hit. You're probably going to get suspended for a very long time. Back then, it wasn't. Back then, it was celebrated. And it was part of the, the highlight reel package after the fact, because Anaheim ended up scoring or winning that game. And actually, as crazy as sports are, Paul Correa came back on the ice that game and just one of the most ridiculous pinpoint slap shots into the back of net I've ever seen in my life. Kind of makes you think about how sports work that way. But I'm getting off track here. The point is, I mean, there's talent in every era of the NHL, so I don't think goal scoring is necessarily easier in one era than the next. I think just being able to hit 800 goals is just remarkable, and something that I don't know, if it's something that we can look forward to another player doing, because again, it's a lot like these Tom Brady records in the NFL. In order to even get into the realm and sniff those records, you have to play at such a high level for such a long time. And that's what Alex Ovechkin has done. And like a great 10-year career is not even going to scratch the surface. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's like, it's not only just the unique skill set, the just instinctual ability to score goals, but being able to do it for so long. I talk about 2003. Well, that's when Alex Ovechkin came into the league. He's been doing this for almost 20 years, and that's that's hard to top.
Yeah, we're talking about 45 goals per year, close to 50 goals per year for an 18-year period. That's amazing, and he's still one of the elite goal scorers in hockey. It's not like he's just kind of hanging on and he's going to score a grand total of 27 goals this year and be surpassed by 30 or 40 guys in the league. He's still an elite goal scorer, and I think you make a great point, Ian, because not just hockey, all of the major sports have changed over the last 20 years. We talk about it all the time in football, right? You could win with a defense and a running game back in 2002, 2003. Well, now you need that elite quarterback. It's a different sport. And football, baseball is all about, home runs, walks, and strikeouts. That's why I've kind of been turned off by baseball. Launch angles. Yeah, when they start going with launch angles and exit velocity, I exit the room I'm watching the game in and go to do something else. Obviously, basketball is completely different. I mean, the 2009, 2010 NBA Finals with the Celtics and Lakers, Game 7 was 83-79. It was one of the most boring Game 7s I've ever watched. Now, I know we're going to talk about Lakers Celtics from the other night. That thing was exhilarating because you had just elite offense on the court. And we're seeing that in hockey as well, right? I mean, it's a much more wide open game. But I do think that the goaltending is so good up and down. But yeah, when you get to those numbers, I don't care what era you're playing in, who you're playing with, who you're playing against, what your whole game is about. That's damn impressive.
Yeah, and look, again, he's 97. Wayne Gretzky is at 897 goals, and I know we're talking about Alex Ovechkin, but I can't stop but sit here and think, I'm like, it kind of puts Wayne Gretzky in a lot better. Like, I don't want to say that we're dull to how the greatness of Wayne Gretzky. I mean, the guy's nicknamed the Great One, And I think it's even there's always pushback, and I think there's cases for some other players. We talk about Bobby Orr, it would say Bobby Hull, scoring goals, and some of these other guys that came along the way. But for the most part, I think everyone, Mario Lemieux, obviously, we talk about Gretzky as the greatest, because at the end of the day, it's so hard to just fathom how many points that he scored, because we think of it now. Alex Ovechkin's played almost 20 years, and he's still a good, like you said, about 2.5 seasons away from getting close to that. And I got people apparently doing work outside my window right now. If you can't hear that, I mean, I can, so I know you guys can. But you think about it, Alex Ovechkin's 2.5 years away from even approaching that 897 mark. Like, that's absurd. Like, now you think about Wayne Gretzky, 1979 to 1990, he played 20 years in the NHL. So his and we haven't even discussed the fact that he has more assists than anyone else has points. Like, we haven't even talked about that aspect of it. But we're not going to, because we're not trying to take away from what Alex Ovechkin has done, because we're just kind of trying to point out how rare it is and how great you truly have to be. Like, not just like great players come and go in every generation. You can have a handful of great players in the league at any given moment. I'm talking about generationally great. And in Alex Ovechkin's case, it was just his goal scoring ability is just so far and above everyone else's in this league. It's impressive.
Still at an advanced age, and I'm a Mario Lemieux guy. I think he's the greatest player ever, at least the most skilled guy ever. To have all of that skill at 6'5", 235. He to me was like LeBron James of hockey. He's just like bigger, stronger, faster, more skilled than everyone. On a per goals per game basis, actually Mike Bossy is the greatest goal scorer in league history at 0.77 goals per game. Lemieux's at 0.75. Gretzky's at 0.6. So obviously Gretzky was more than just a goal scorer, and Lemieux was more than just a goal scorer. I mean, both of those guys essentially average 2 points per game, which is just mind blowing, right? I mean, if you get to 100 points in a season, that's pretty amazing, and that works out to about 1.2, 1.25 points per game. I've totally given myself a popsicle headache with all these numbers, but Lemieux put up 690 goals in like 960 games, which is just amazing. I mean, obviously the debilitating back injury, and oh, by the way, he missed several years with cancer. So that's pretty amazing as well. But I've always been a goals over assist guy. I mean, every time someone scores a goal, there's a goal. Only one goal scorer, but there's generally two guys that get an assist. You get that secondary assist, what they call the hockey assist. How many of those? Again, I don't want to get into that debate about Gretzky and Lemieux, Howe and Orr, because to me they're the proverbial Mount Rushmore of hockey.
Well, and I can safely say, with obviously no numbers to back it up, that when those guys got assists, they were true. You know what I mean? Like Gretzky was. He wasn't just the set. He was a guy setting up other play. I mean, that's the great thing about hockey is, like, yes, the goal is obviously the flashier thing and thing that people gravitate towards and seems more impactful. And at the end of the day, I mean, that the goal is what counts on the scoreboard. But the ability to see the ice the way guys like Gretzky and certainly Lemieux. I mean, you may not, you can make a case that no one saw the ice better than he did.
Right.
That ability can really make a difference, because it makes goal scoring a whole hell of a lot easier for some of these other guys. So, but yeah, it's just such a rare accomplishment to get to, and something that, I mean, I can't project, because I do this all the time in the NFL. It's silly to project 10, 15 years in the future. And that's what you're talking about with guys like, say, Connor McDavid. I don't know what his goal pace is at the moment, but I don't know how many years he would have to play to come close to matching, these type of numbers. I'm not quite sure, so I'm not going to do it. Right now, we know Alex Ovechkin is there. And, the reality of it is it's very likely. Well, I won't say very likely, because, again, we don't know what's going to happen over the next couple of years, because he is older. And, hockey you can certainly play a little bit later in life if you manage it well. But, the way he plays, his play style it's basically to go 120% all the time. So, you know what I mean? Like, is he going to be able to manage that decline if it does happen and still be able to put the puck in the net and do so at a pace that's going to be able to get him to that number in the next 2.5 years? Because if you're talking about 3, 4, 5 years down the road, there may be a chance that he doesn't get there. And I don't want, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of want to see that race happen. And I believe I saw it this morning. I'm trying to pull it up right now. He trademarked the Great GR8 Chase. So, you know, that's something he's gotten on his mind too. And I can't imagine that he's going to, his plan obviously is likely to play until he reaches that mark.
Yeah, why not? He's playing still at a high level. And I just did a little bit of research on Connor McDavid. He's played 517 games in his career. He has 265 goals. So he's averaging about a half a goal a game, which obviously is impressive. But that leads you to believe that he averages roughly 40 goals per year, which means he's going to have to play 23 years to get to 900. You know, he'll have some years where he has 52 or 53. I mean, he's that talented. He's the most talented guy in the league, and he's still, you know, pretty young dude.
And that's kind of the point. As great and Connor McDavid, widely considered the best, if not one of the 3 best players in the sport, and a generational guy, is way off pace for that those numbers. That's how, you know, to kind of put those into perspective. But anyways, let's move on to the other 5v5 sport, and that is the NBA. We weren't on the air yesterday, so we're going to talk about those pair of matchups on Tuesday night, which were worth the grogginess in the morning, because I was cursing that, you know, the Celtics and Lakers started at 10:30, and for much of that game, especially in the fourth quarter when, you know, a 20-point lead evaporated, I was cursing myself for staying up again. But there's just something with the Celtics team where it's like you just cannot count them out in any situation. They're too good offensively to go completely dormant for any long stretch of period of time. And Jason Tatum does seem like he's answering the call when called. And he had a quote unquote rough stretch. And I say that with my fingers up, you know, relative to how he's been playing. He had a rough stretch, but big game against the Lakers. And not gonna lie, I love that he took LeBron to town there on the baseline. That was kind of sweet. It was fun to see him do all that, turn around, a little turnaround jump shot, and just sink it in LeBron's face. That was kind of nice. I enjoyed that.
Well, I mean, I still like the fact that LeBron's still out there competing and taking their best player defensively. Now, it didn't work out for the Lakers, but LeBron's still quite capable of getting the job done. I mean, he had 33, 9 and 9 the other night. Anthony Davis was phenomenal. Even Russell Westbrook's been playing really well. It was a strange game. I mean, the Celtics get up by 20, and then the Lakers go on a 45-12 run, which is more common in the NBA than it's ever been because teams get hot from 3, the other team gets cold from 3, and yada, yada, yada. We've got a ball game. The Lakers got up by 13 with 3:40 left, and this is the 3rd or 4th time this year where they've had sizable leads in the 4th quarter, and they just can't finish the game off. You know, whether it's missed free throws or they get cold from 3 or they forget to defend on several occasions. I mean, they've had 3 or 4 games where if they could have held on and won those, they'd actually have a winning record. They've played better of late. They're 9-6 over the last 15. But yeah, Tatum was spectacular to tie the game up and do what he had to do in overtime. And he gets pumped up playing the Lakers. Obviously, he grew up idolizing Kobe Bryant. It's a great stage still, you know, Crypto.com arena, however long that partnership's going to last. But yeah, he's obviously right there for MVP candidates, among the candidates. And again, went through a 6-game stretch where he averaged 22 a game, shot 40% from the floor. I would guarantee you, every great player in the history of the sport have had 6-game stretches where they're off. Yeah. It happens. You know, like that. This isn't Will Chamberlain when he averaged 50 a game and like never had an off night. I mean, that's the way it is in the NBA. The scheduling, you know, derails you a little bit. And let's face facts. Golden State and the Clippers, 2 teams that really contained him. I believe he was 13 of 42 from the floor in those 2 games. Those teams are loaded with wing defenders. Yeah. So it's you know, you're not going to get easy shots against them. The Lakers are a little short in that department. So Tatum was able to, do what he had to do the other night. But yeah, that was a interesting game to watch. The Lakers, when they're clicking, are still a good team, but the problem is their floor is so low. When they're bad, they look like the worst team in basketball.
Yeah. And that's the problem. That's why you're hovering around 500 and a little bit below as the Lakers, because there's no balance. It's like you're just going back and forth, swinging erratically, and there's no way to kind of balance it out. But these teams, and it's like you go back to Golden State, who look, they have some problems of their own now. Steph Curry's injured for any period of time. He banged up his shoulder last night. But like Golden State, I mean, that's a team that it's incredible that they're the other day they were coming into the game 12-2 at home and 2-12 on the road. How is that? Like, how are you so different home and away? And I understand it. I mean, look, you still have that core of Steph, Draymond, and of course Klay Thompson. But Steph is the heavy lifter in all of this. He's the guy that's really keeping that going. It's not like all three of them are contributing. Like, I mean, I understand people love, like, Warriors fans love Draymond Green, but what is the purpose of Draymond Green at this point? Because it seems to me, and again, I don't watch the Warriors every single day. I understand he's a good defender, and his personality can certainly get under the skin of opposing teams, but how many technicals has he gotten just the last two games? And like yesterday, yelling and screaming at the referee, the official. This is just something that, like, if that's going to happen, put up some points. Offset this nonsense with like some sort of ability to score points and help this team win games. And I feel like he's not doing that. So correct me if I'm wrong. And maybe this is a little bitterness from the finals from last year, but I just don't see Draymond Green's usefulness at this point.
Well, I think it's more about the postseason. Obviously, they get through the regular season.
They got to get there to begin with before that.
They will. I think they will. Yeah. I think they'll be able to sneak in at some point, although it's incredible that they can't win on the road. They can't lose at home, which is understandable. Steph, Klay, and the rest of that talented team at home, very difficult to beat. Then they get on the road and they just turtle. And the thing is, they've got a veteran team. If this was a young, inexperienced team, okay, you go on the road, you're not quite the same player as you are at home. Jordan Poole, his splits are pretty pronounced home and away. I think Wiggins, who's battled some injuries, same thing. Look, Steph's going to score 30 plus at home, on the road, on a neutral court, whatever. But that is kind of alarming because this is a team that 6 months ago won 2 of 3 in the finals at TD Garden to win the championship. So they can win on the road, but it is weird. But as far as Draymond Green, he almost feels like he's at the point now that Rodney Harrison was at in, say, 2007. Like, he's certainly past his prime, but he's still got some usefulness out there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Rodney was far more useful at this point because what does Draymond do?
David Tyree, a younger Rodney Harrison takes care of that.
That's a.
I'm sorry to rub it in, but
you're killing me, John. Come on, I was not I pretty much go about my day-to-day life expecting not to hear about the helmet catch, but here we are talking about the goddamn helmet catch.
Okay, I'll make a deal with you. I'll never say that again. Just don't bring up the muffed onside kick that the Packers couldn't handle and kept them out of Super Bowl 49. That's our new deal.
I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll just focus on Roger's shortcomings in that game.
Yeah, he's got a lot of those too. So go ahead. Yeah. That's a bad deal.
Yeah, that's a terrible. I'll take it. I'll take that deal. But no, I get where you're saying. I get where you're saying, but like I feel like Rodney still brought something to the table where it's like I feel like Draymond. It's like he can be a good defender, but it just seems like the fouls, the technicals, the yapping.
Yeah,
that's kind of outgrown its usefulness.
Sure.
A handful of years ago, it was, again, you're going head to head with LeBron and the Cavs, and there was this intense rival. They were at their peak, and he was scoring points too. I mean, he wasn't this all elite scoring threat, but he was an elite defender and he could score points, which that gives you a little bit of leeway to run your mouth. And now it's like I said, it's there's a fine line between cockiness and arrogance. And that whole dynamic, and I think the Warriors, in a sense, have jumped the shark and have become, and Draymond Green especially, more of misplaced arrogance as opposed to confidence, which I think was the case before. So that's what I meant in terms of that. But I'm still hurting at the mention of that helmet catch.
I apologize.
I mean, what else was he supposed to do? He had his hand there. It was, I mean, I swear there must have been some of that turtle glue that we're seeing now on, late night TV. Like this will, hold up to 6,500 pounds. That's what I'm pretty sure was on David Tyree's helmet.
Might have been. That was the last catch of the guy's career too.
It was like the only catch of his career.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But the interesting thing about the Warriors, I think there's still some lingering effects of the punch that he threw at Jordan Poole in training camp.
Well, that's
without question.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it too. It's like, okay, when are the antics just too much because he's not delivering on the court?
Yeah, it's almost like Woody Hayes. I mean, I'm sorry to go way back to like 1978, but Woody Hayes was acting crazy on the sidelines, but then he went a little bit too far when he decided to punch an opposing player, Charlie Bowman, in the neck after Bowman had intercepted Fleester's pass in a Gator Bowl, I believe it was, in late 1978. And at that point, they're like, okay, he's jumped the shark. We've got to get rid of this old dude. As far as Draymond, too, I think the contract is lingering. Jordan Poole got a massive extension, as did Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond hasn't. And he's looking at his last sizable contract. Look, no one's going to have a telethon, or we're not going to go, do fundraising for Draymond Green. He's made a lot of money, and he will make a lot of money post-career because he'll be fantastic on TV. I can see him joining the TNT crew if one of those guys retires. I mean, he's got his podcast making money, so it's not like he's hurting for cash. But look, that's how you kind of mark yourself, is what you make when you're an elite athlete like that. So I think that's still lingering. And one theory that came out too is why they're playing so well at home and not on the road. At home, you kind of don't see the guys, right? You show up 2.5 hours before the game, you tape up, you shoot around, you play, you go home. When you're on the road, you kind of maybe avoiding each other on the road. If a team's bonding, they'll do things together. Yeah, so maybe there's a little more tension on the road. That's just one theory, because it doesn't make any sense, because when you get a veteran team, it shouldn't be that pronounced to play that poorly on the road.
Yeah, no, I agree with that for sure. And that's something that, again, I mean, no one's going to write the Warriors off because, again, this assumes we'll see what happens with Steph. The guy was cooking, I think he had 27 points in the first half before obviously the shoulder injury. And, if he's out for any extended period of time, I mean, this team, I don't think is capable of weathering the storm like it could do in the past, because with Steph, they're this bad on the road. Imagine what they're going to be like without him. And I don't know. So, all right, Thursday night football tonight. We're kicking off week 15. Bueller 15. I can't believe we're already here, but we are.
Patrick Mahomes' number.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There we go. Yep. Patrick Mahomes' number. Yep. Okay. They get a nice little day against Houston this week. We'll see if they play down.
Now, is the NFL going to rename their MVP after Patrick Mahomes?
Well,
the way the NBA has with Michael Jordan? Because I think that's pretty much where we're going.
Well, if you ask some people, they should do it already. I mean, I can't look. You should have seen me, John. You'd be happy. I was out there pounding the pavement for Aaron Rodgers the other day. Yes, I
win MVP again this year?
No, God, no.
Oh,
no. I'm talking about you. I was defending him because it's getting kind of ridiculous to the point where someone tweeted yesterday. This is a guy that is in the media, so it's always kind of rubs me the wrong way. But it's like he asked the question, not he asked a question, but the implication was this was clearly something he believed. He wasn't just kind of fishing to see what other people. You know what I'm saying? Like. There's certain times like when you put out a question, you're basically, it's a question, but you're also making a statement. And he asked, is Patrick Mahomes a top 10 quarterback already? And I about lost it, because I'm sitting here thinking like, this isn't a Tom Brady thing. And to me, this is how I view it. I think it's incredibly disrespectful to all the great players that have come before him. And there's been plenty of them, to sit there and suggest that a guy who hasn't even been the best quarterback in the league currently, maybe this year he has, to suggest he's already a top 10. I mean, it's such a outrageous claim to make, especially, and I'm like talking, and this is how the Rodgers thing got brought up, was because he's like, someone tweeted, oh, he's already passed Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, has he won 4 MVPs already? Has he had the fourth or fifth most touchdowns in NFL history? Like I don't
Thank you.
care. Like
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I do. I was thinking about you when I was tweeting these things,
Thank
but
you.
at the same time, I was just thinking about what the hell did these parents do to these kids to make them think that this was a something that's smart to tweet or say in public.
You damn kids.
Yeah, look, it's not even kid. I mean, look, I understand like fandom is going to get in the way of a lot of things. Like I'm certainly, I'm sure my fandom has clouded my judgment a little bit on certain takes I've had, but we're just getting into the just way too over the top. Like, no, Patrick Mahomes is not a top 10 quarterback of all time. That's just not. It's not.
No.
It's not even close to a reality.
He can be. I mean, obviously, if
sure.
we have the discussion in 5 years and he wins 2 Super Bowls and 2 MVPs, and then
look,
we can make
Justin
that case.
Herbert. So can Joe Burrow. I mean, all these players at this point have the potential to do whatever they want. Sure, and that's always kind of the fallback. Like, well, time will tell. Well, yeah, but like I mentioned the other day, like in order for him to even sniff, we talk about Wayne Gretzky's records. In order for him to even sniff, say, Brady's records, and this is again the even more outrageous angle that people take, he has to play at this elite level for at least 15 more years.
Right.
Like that doesn't happen hardly ever. So, let's put it in perspective. Anyways, I was spending a lot of time defending Aaron Rodgers because I was like, look,
thank you.
The guy's a 4-time MVP. Like, has he made it back to the Super Bowl? No, but I've talked about this many times before. I think Tom Brady's screwed up how we view success for quarterbacks, because we'll look at Aaron Rodgers' career and say he doesn't go back to another Super Bowl, and this is kind of it. And people will say, oh, he was a failure, or he did this, or he didn't do that. Well, no, that's not true. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game. But unfortunately, he only won 1 Super Bowl. And as much as Chiefs fans are already chalking up 5-6 Super Bowls for Patrick Mahomes, I like to point out that a lot of that same energy surrounding Mahomes surrounded Aaron Rodgers, and look where we are now. Doesn't mean he can't have a great career, but getting back to the Super Bowl isn't easy. And on top of that, John, does he have a 2-1 Super Bowl appearance lead over Aaron Rodgers? Sure. But Aaron Rodgers' performance in 1 Super Bowl absolutely demolishes anything Patrick Mahomes has ever done in a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And
he was spectacular that day, without question. He was as good as you're going to see. I think, because after the 2010 season, the Packers win the Super Bowl. He's 27 years old, and they're a fairly young team, well-run organization, all of that good stuff. And since then, he's had a great career. He's won 4 MVPs during that time. He's been the second best quarterback in football behind Tom Brady during that stretch, right? I mean, he made the All-Decade team. Brady was first team All-Decade, Aaron Rodgers second team All-Decade, and both guys finished 1-2 in MVP voting in 2021, so they're still pretty darn good. It's just that, look, Dan Marino, same thing. Dan Marino in his second season won the MVP, went to the Super Bowl, never went back. As time goes on, that narrative kind of changes, because I see a lot of people put Marino ahead of Rodgers in their quarterback rankings, and I always push back on that, because I think, first of all, Rodgers has been a better regular season quarterback, and I think with the exception, obviously, of the NFC Championship games, he's been great in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. He's got this weird thing in the NFC Championship game where he just doesn't play well, I guess. But so there's always, as time goes on, the record looks better. You know what I'm saying? So now with Marino's like, oh, he was great. No one threw the ball like him, and yada yada yada. Well, Rodgers has as much arm talent as Marino, and he's more mobile, and I think a better quarterback. But I mean, the Mahomes in the top 10 stuff. I mean, I heard about this with Mike Trout after he won his 3rd MVP. He's one of the 10 greatest players in the history of baseball. I'm like, well, he may be talented enough to be that, but can you let the guy's career finish, or at least get more advanced? Yeah, is he better than Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Barry Bonds, Frank Robinson? I'll go through a whole list of them. No,
and that's the thing. People again, he's on pace for this. I always used to use this example in the NFL. I mean, now we have 17 games, so I don't even want to try to do this type of math. So I'm going to stick with the 16 game.
I'm good with math. I can help you.
Well, my thing was, say a quarterback has 2 great first weeks, so throws 6 touchdowns and follows that up with 5. So he has 11 touchdowns through 2 weeks. Now, again, going back to the old 16 game schedule. That would he would in that sense be on pace to throw 88 touchdowns in a
Right.
season, which from a mathematic standpoint is technically correct. However,
Right.
no one in their right mind is up there seriously saying, "Oh, quarterback X or Y is going to be throwing 88 touchdowns this season." No, everyone understands that there's a balance that's going to achieve that. So that's what I point to. You can't project 15 years down the road because you're just
No.
basing it mostly. And this is the weird thing too, is and it's kind of like the Marino effect because everyone, and rightfully so, focuses on 1984.
Mhm.
Unbelievable season, ranks right up there with the best of all time. But how long can you live off that? And Dan Marino seems to have, again, this is not a knock on Dan Marino, but this is more about the commentary surrounding him. Everyone references that season. And I feel a lot of the same thing happens with Patrick Mahomes, where everyone is still living in 2018, where he took the league by storm and he dominated. I mean, I hear he's run the league, he's dominated the league, this, that, and the other. And I keep going back to he's 1-5 against his two closest rivals in the
Mhm.
AFC. He's had poor performances in two Super Bowls for the majority of two of them. He had a piss poor performance against the Bengals in the AFC Championship last year. And again, if you're going to go through and say, well, was he the best quarterback in 2021? No. Was he the best quarterback in 2022? No. Was he the best quarterback in 2019? No. And these aren't opinions. I mean, you can base it off MVPs. You can base it on total stat output. It doesn't matter. He's not going to come up rosy. But people keep going back to, well, since 2018. Well, yeah, okay. A lot of that has to do with that 2018 season, which no one's taken it away from him. But that doesn't buy you a lifetime of being the best quarterback in the league. Like, certainly when you ignore that guys like Brady and Rodgers have accomplished more,
Mhm.
outside of, well, Rodgers not with the Super Bowl win, but you know what I'm saying? Like, multiple
So the
MVPs.
MVPs.
Yeah.
Yep.
That season, a couple in 2020, I mean, where Rodgers 48 touchdowns and however many, I mean,
5
unbelievable. Yeah.
interceptions. No, the way I always look at it, Mahomes in 2018, Marino in 84, phenomenal seasons. Peyton Manning had two as good, if not better. Tom Brady had two as good, if not better, and Aaron Rodgers had two seasons as good, if not better, in terms of just
oh
raw
07,
numbers, not
oh,
winning Super Bowls. But the interesting thing is, all those 8 seasons did not yield a Super Bowl win. So
no.
that's
Well,
kind of crazy.
07 Brady, 04 Peyton Manning, and 2011
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers are three seasons that, and
Yeah.
this isn't just me saying it because there's a lot of numbers that back it up. As great as the Chiefs were in a much more favorable offensive era, let's not
Yep.
forget that it still
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
reach the level of those three teams. So, like, even to suggest that like he's already surpassed Aaron Rodgers or he's knocking on Brady, that's absurd. I mean, he hasn't even come close to that, and it's like I said, it's just kind of getting a little out of control. But so naturally, when I brought up that we're going to talk about Thursday Night Football, we got off to a little argument or discussion about quarterback rankings and stuff like that. So real quick, we do have the Ram. I'm sorry, not the Rams. I'm looking at a picture with the Rams on it. We have the Seahawks and the 49ers. Yeah, Joel brings up a great point. Dan Marino got that part in Ace Ventura, which, the funny thing is like that the Super Bowl in that matchup at the time, I always joked was the Dolphins and the Eagles. And I'm like, well, clearly this game didn't finish because neither of those teams have won in that time. Obviously, the Dolphins hadn't won since 72 and still haven't won since 72. And at the time, the Eagles had not won a Super Bowl. They've since changed that. We could possibly get that matchup this year, so that'll be interesting. Anyways, we got the Seahawks hosting the 49ers tonight. The 49ers coming off two huge wins with Brock Purdy, obviously over the Bucks last week, and the week before that. I mean, I like there's no reason to not pick the 49ers at this point. I think Brock Purdy's good enough to keep playing well. And look, the Seahawks from a 6-3 start have really kind of faltered down the stretch here. They're not looking like that surprise best team in the NFC West. Clearly, that was not to be true throughout the entire season. I just there's nothing to make me believe that the 49ers aren't going to win this game. Although I do expect a pretty wild game because no matter where these teams are ranking wise, one team could be better than the other. The other, that could switch. We always get great games between these two. And maybe I'm just, hoping for a little 2016 type Seahawks 49ers matchup. Hopefully that's the case because that'll make Thursday night go quite a bit better than it has been.
Al Michaels would be happy with that, right? He's had some duds on Thursday night. I think, first of all, San Francisco, if they win this, they clinch the division, right? Yes. They're 9-4, Seattle 7-6. They would then hold the tiebreaker with 3 weeks left. So I think as a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, they'd kind of be buttoned up and take care of that. Purdy's kind of banged up. If he doesn't go, Josh Johnson goes. But in that system, you can kind of plug and play quarterbacks, because they can run the football, although no Deebo Samuel, that's going to hurt them, although he'll be back later in the season. Their defense is elite. And I think the thing that's happened with Seattle, Ian, is they're such a young team that as now you get to week 15 and so on and so forth, that they start to get tired. They hit a wall, like a rookie wall. They're starting like 6 rookies, right? So, I mean, that's a young team. So San Francisco, more of a veteran team with that elite defense, I think they'll take care of business. But yeah, every time they go to Seattle, it's a wild game, and Seattle kind of owns them up there. But I think San Francisco is going to take care of business. It's a tough spot though, because you have back-to-back emotional wins over Miami and Tampa.
Yeah.
Like, how much do they have left 3 days later? It's not a real long trip, San Francisco to Seattle, division rival. You should be up for it. I like the 49ers tonight.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we talk about the Giants being a team that kind of hit a plateau. You can say that same thing about the Seahawks, which is fine. I just, we'll see what happens with them moving forward. Again, I think we're going to get a pretty entertaining game, pretty close game, but we'll see. So, all right, it's time. It's my bedtime, John. It's
nap time for the old guy.
All I do is I wake up, I do the show, and I go right back to bed. That's my daily life. So
lunch at 11:30, right?
I live for nothing but this show. So so in order to do that, I'll be living once again tomorrow at 9 a.m. as we were back then to preview the rest of Week 15, give our game picks, and do all that good stuff. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will talk to you tomorrow.